And for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, everyone. We have a series of meetings today. Really, we'll have our county board meeting, then we'll recess for a few minutes while we do a drainage authority meeting. And I think in that same gap, so maybe it's more than a few minutes, we will have a public hearing for a housing ordinance, proposed housing ordinance. So we'll start out with the consent agenda. I'll read those items on the consent agenda. One is the approval of the legal and Compass County Board minutes from last meeting. And we all received that in the packet, so if it's all fine, we're good to go. Approval of the auditors, warrants and claims, acceptance of a donation from Education Minnesota. The donations are pretty common to the county, and there's no really reason why we have to have a discussion about when somebody's giving us money. We like that. And then updated use of social media policy. If I may stop here for a second and ask the administrator, are there any changes in that policy?
No, we currently had two separate policies, the use of social media and then the expression and voice of social media. And so we just combined them into one. And I did have the county attorney review them. And so we just combined it to make it easier and more accessible to staff.
So unless anybody has any concerns, we'll keep that on the consent agenda. And finally, again, a routine renewal of a liquor license. So you've seen and heard the consent agenda. I would look for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves to accept the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, general business discussions. Lauren Engelby, Ag Inspector, will talk about the Noxious Weeds Appeals Committee.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you for your time. I have two items before you this morning. One is for you as county commissioners, and the second one is for you as Drainage Authority. The first item is resolution number 2023-13, which is a routine noxious weed appeals committee that we approve each year. This noxious weed appeals committee resolution identifies up to 9 members for a committee that would meet in the event that a person of Kaneohe County or a property owner in Kaneohe County would get a noxious weed violation and then want to appeal that. And those violations would either come from township officers or perhaps sometimes the county itself. This is a formality. It is needed in order for the county to act upon the appeal. To my knowledge, well, I know for a fact that this committee has not had to meet, thankfully, in 27 years. And prior to that, I don't know that it has met either, which is a very, very good thing. It's just one more committee that you can be on, which is kind of nice to have on a resume, right? But
Mr. Engelby, a second ago, you said something about these violations come from the township supervisors of the county. Notice of violations comes from them, not the violations themselves, right?
sorry, correct. Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Because I know a couple supervisors I'd like to have some fun with if that's the case, so.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. So I ask for your approval in the action to pass resolution 2023-13.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2023-13.
Commissioner Anderson moves on 2023-13. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Let me go back. Commissioner Dwayne Anderson makes the motion. Commissioner Dale Anderson makes the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to recess the Kaneohe County Board of Commissioners until later in the hour. And we will reopen as the Kaneohe County Drainage Authority.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have before you a recommendation to order a redetermination of benefits on County Ditch number 7, which is one of the first ones established in the county. County Ditch number 7 begins at the outlet of St. John's Lake and flows about 2 miles to County Road 1 south of Pennock. From that point downstream, or from that point on, it's called a branch of Joint Ditch number 3. The purpose of this came about when we ordered a redetermination of benefits on Joint Ditch number 7, which is Hawk Creek and Chautauqua Creek. The viewers have been working on that right now. This afternoon, I'd like to ask the Joint Ditch number 3 board for a redetermination of benefits, and I'm asking you for that same thing this morning. The reason is Joint Ditch number 7, Joint Ditch number 3, and County Ditch number 7 are all within one watershed. They affect each other. So in order to do a proper redetermination of benefits, I think it's wise to do them all together. And at the end of the day, perhaps we can consolidate all 3 of those systems into one large system, which would be about 394,000 acres into one system that would go from Solomon Lake in this area all the way to the town of Maynard and a large portion of that. So that would involve parts of Chippewa as well as Renville County. The viewers think that's a wise decision. In talking with our drainage attorney, he thinks it's a wise decision. It's done in the past, other counties. We've actually done it on several drainage systems here in this county. For example, Joint Ditch number 1 had the main stem and 12 branches and laterals. When we did a redetermination on that one, we consolidated them all into one. Makes it a lot easier for the property owners, and it makes it a lot easier for myself to manage those accounts and the county auditor as well. As you can see, if you'd like to, I can show this on the overhead if you'd like. County Ditch 7 has a watershed area of 6,930 acres. The people who are immediately downstream of St. John's Lake, who own 320 of those acres, pay 100% of the annual maintenance and repair costs for that system.
Do you want me to zoom in more?
Yeah, well, this is probably good for now, thanks. You all have this map in your packet too, but when in talking with the property owners, they do understand that none of the properties upstream of St. John's Lake pays for annual maintenance or repairs on County Ditch 7. And they do feel that's unfair, and it really is, because there's a lot of water coming that direction. If we do a redetermination of benefits, it will identify all the contributors, which is the entire watershed all the way up through Long Lake, Ringo Lake, Henderson, Twin. Those people will be brought into the system to help pay a proportionate share of the annual maintenance and repair costs. Those people will have a far less benefit and a far less assessment than the people right on the ditch system, but they will have the responsibility to pay a certain portion. And those, when we do this and those people are brought in, those are the people who are gonna have the most questions for me, and that gives me the opportunity to explain why, if you're in the watershed, you're gonna pay a little bit compared to the people who farm right on the ditch system. And it makes it fair and equitable across the entire watershed. That's why one of the reasons why we do this. So before I make a recommendation, we need to do, or one of two things need to happen. The property owners need to petition us for a redetermination of benefits, or if the property owners and I determine that the current records do not reflect current day's use and contributors, I can bring a recommendation to you and ask that you order a redetermination of benefits, which is exactly what we're doing here today. I do always have an informational meeting, invite all the property owners that are currently assessed, and that would have been 18 property owners. So I invited them to a meeting. We had to postpone and reschedule because of a snowstorm. But we did have an informational meeting held on March 2nd at the Public Works office. Commissioner Dwayne Anderson was in attendance, which was very good. That's his district. Commissioner Dale Anderson, you have a big portion of the watershed, so those are your constituents there. We had low attendance, but the people we had there were two larger farmers in that area, and they're very progressive farmers, and they understood the process very well. They offered their support in doing a redetermination of benefits. I also talked to them about consolidating County Ditch 7 with JD3 and JD7 also at the end of the day when we get this process completed. They thought that was a wise decision financially as well for everybody really on the whole system. Since we had a low turnout at that meeting, I typed up a summary of the discussion that we had at that meeting, and I sent that to all of them, all the rest of them, maybe with the exception of Burlington Northern, because, you know, they're not local and they don't understand drainage assessments, but, so I don't think I sent one to Texas. But otherwise, everybody who currently pays into that system got that summary of our meeting. I didn't have any phone calls from that, so my hope is that I explain things well enough, or they understand things that they're supportive. So no news is good news in this. That's how I'm going to take it. So I think it's wise. It's a good decision for those property owners, and we speak on their behalf. We need to take care of those folks, and I think we're doing that. So are there any questions of me?
Members of the board, or Drainage Authority, any questions? I have a couple. So we're only giving, if we approve this resolution, it'll only be for our portion of the watershed and County Ditch 7, correct? We can't speak for the other laterals that are going in there.
Correct. This is just for County Ditch 7, which is 100% in Kansas County. So you 5 are the drainage authority for this ditch system.
Okay, and then the other question I had is that if we combine these systems, who then is the authority? I know we have joint ditch authority, but do you manage it? Does Chippewa manage it? Does Roseville or Renville manage it? Who manages?
Yes. Okay, what would happen in that case when County Ditch 7, all of the branches and laterals to JD3 and all of the branches and laterals to JD7 are combined into one system? Then a new drainage authority board would have to be formed at that time. There would be members from all 3 counties. So the number of acres that are in those 3 counties would probably determine if we have 2 or 3 members on that drainage authority board. So from there forward, it would be a joint ditch with 3 counties.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Then you may proceed with your recommendation, I guess.
I recommend at this time, Mr. Chairman and members, that we order a redetermination of benefits on Kansas County Ditch number 7. And I'll back up. The drainage viewers that I would recommend are the same 5 drainage viewers that are currently working on joint ditch number 7. They are willing and able and very capable of taking on this ditch system as well when they're out doing the redetermination of benefits on the other ones. Those members are Ron Ringquist, Dave Schmidt, Tim Christensen, Jeff Johnson, and Brad Wick. And they range from having 40 years of experience to 2 years of experience. So it's nice to have the experienced ones and some trainees on that group as well. So that's what I would recommend.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we order a redetermination of benefits for County Ditch number 7 with recommended viewers as presented.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on the recommendation from staff on the Drainage Authority staff. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Lauren, do you have any other business to come, drainage business to come before the Drainage Authority?
I have one comment that just came up, and that's in regards to utility permits.
Okay.
In the past, when we've had a utility company cross a county drainage open ditch or a county tile, I've developed a permit with that, for that company, brought it to the Drainage Authority, and had the Drainage Authority approve that. That was a formality that is more than really is needed by statute, but I think it was a good process. We can still do that. The challenge we have coming up in the very near future is with the Summit Carbon pipeline that's coming across country, as well as a new phone line that's being proposed in St. John's, Mamre, Arctander, and Dovry Township. They're plowing in several miles of underground telephone line. And I counted up 50 or 51 crossings that we could identify, and we're gonna identify those. But it involves 5 different Drainage Authority groups. So in talking with our drainage attorney, he said you could have the company cite 103E drainage statute, which says no one can obstruct or damage a public drainage system, and it is a crime if you do so. If they send me a letter and outline all the crossings, and I'll help them do that, and cite those statutes, we're covered.
Okay.
That way I don't have to try and schedule 5 different Drainage Authority meetings to take 5 minutes worth of action. So if you're okay with that, I will proceed in that manner, perhaps with both the Summit Carbon pipeline, which I'm working with Mel on. And so we just want to make sure we cover our tails. You know, if they do any damage, that they know that they are responsible, and they're fine with it. So I don't know if we need any action unless you feel we do, but
I might be a little more comfortable if we go ahead and take action on your recommendation for the, should we call it a blanket approval? Or
right,
for the
Watershed.
for utility,
easements or crossings?
utility permit,
Utility permit.
yep, crossings.
Okay. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lauren, in regards to Summit Carbon, we don't have any regulatory authority on that one. That is, that's at the state level, correct?
Correct. The Public Utilities Commission will issue a permit there. We want to make sure that they have proper language in there. And that's exactly what I'm recommending, is citing those 2 statutes under Drainage Code, the same statute. But yeah, I don't think we'll be issuing them a permit, but Public Utilities Commission will.
I'm just really curious as to how they're going to do that, because when they were before us last time, they were talking about not even having this pipeline below the frost line, correct?
I think I did hear that as well. A couple of the conditions, if I may, we've done in the past. On an open ditch, they can open cut and lay their pipeline or their utility if they want. It has to be a minimum of 4 feet below the original constructed bottom of that ditch. And on tile lines, I've added in there that it must be bored underneath the tile line a minimum of 4 feet. I don't want an open cut because the tile repair and they're going to sag, and we're going to have trouble. So, and the utility companies are okay with that because they're going to bore most of them anyway. We need to protect the system, and we need to protect ourselves. And Mel and I are hopefully going to be involved with that a little bit more in the future.
So I have a question about, you said telephone lines. Did you mean fiber?
It's a telephone company, so
What were the townships again?
St. John's, Mamre, Arctander, and Dovry.
Yeah, that'd be
That's probably
Federated Telephone and the fiber.
It's
Okay,
fiber.
probably, yeah. I think most everything is fiber nowadays, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. So Mary, may I ask you, did you get the motion?
We haven't got,
Nobody made him.
I mean, proposed the language of the action. Yes, I have. Okay. Anybody want that read?
no, I'll also move based on the language that she has written down.
We have a motion on the floor to accept the recommendation of staff to do a blanket policy or blanket permit for all utilities when crossing our
county.
county ditch system. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
So Commissioner Dale Anderson moves, Commissioner
Corky.
Corky did.
Oh, Corky, I'm sorry. Commissioner Berg moves, Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds.
And then
Any other-
I have a little question then. So does this cover like when people put in solar panels and that sort of thing? Will that cover that too?
That's a good question. I think I'd like maybe that be part of the motion. Do you want this decision to just pertain to Summit and the new fiber optic?
Well, we're going to be putting in a lot of fiber optic in the county, hopefully. It'd be nice to kind of cover all that. And then, we had that issue down in Lake Lillian Township
Yeah.
with solar panels that and a county tile system. It would be nice if you were at least contacted so you could check into, any kind of crossings there
Sure.
in the future. At least to coordinate it with planning and zoning.
Yeah, and I can sure do that. It makes good sense. I can sure do that from here going forward, but I'd be happy to notify you when this is happening as well.
Administrator.
Mr. Chair, Lauren alluded to the Summit Carbon thing. Just so you know, we're still working on the 6 counties to come up with a unified road crossing, kind of a developer's agreement. So I've been working with Lauren. In fact, Lauren's going to represent the county on that with myself because it's going to tie into the utility crossing. So we're doing like a unified, but you might see it come back is what I'm getting to this board. Because we're also working on behalf of the townships as well to kind of give them like a shell document to fill out. So we're all protected when these large companies come through.
Yeah, yes, I mean, we got several different things that are going. We got solar. I think for this motion, let's just stick to the ditch system proposal that he's talking about right now, because we may have some other questions that come up. Is that okay?
Yep.
Otherwise, we would have had to amend the motion too.
Yep,
So,
that's fine.
all in favor, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Engelby. Anything further?
I have a signature page. Should I do that later?
I can do it right now, if everybody else is okay with that.
the order to do the redetermination benefits on number 7. Thank you.
I will adjourn the Drainage Authority meeting and reconvene the Kennesaw County Board of Commissioners meeting. All right, next up, Administrator Baker will talk about the Resolution 2023-14, the opioid settlement.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Kelsey Baker, County Administrator. Before you, you have, let me get to it, Resolution 2023-14. This is an amended resolution. You already approved a resolution to receive opioid funding. That was, the previous resolution was for Johnson & Johnson distributors for McKesson, Cardinal Health, and Amerisource Bergen and Mallinckrodt, if I'm not pronouncing that right. The second one for 2023 that is included in your board packet, I'm asking for approval for today is the Teva, Allegrand, Walgreens, Walmart, and CVS. And to date, we haven't received a lot of funding. We have received roughly a total of, in July of 2023, 11,339 is what we'll get in for 2022, and 2023. So we're still working on what we're gonna do with this opioid funding. I've been working with Jenny Lippert with the Health and Human Services, and we'll probably pull in law enforcement and county attorney's office, but we don't have a plan of what we're doing with our opioid funds yet. So I'll be coming back to the board for that approval and update on that. But for today, I'm just asking for approval on this recommendation or
Okay, so if I
resolution.
may ask a question before I ask for a motion. On the previous one, the funding that the revenue we received, that is sitting in an account right now and none of it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep,
And just as a kind of a background, Kennesaw County, Nobles County, and one other county, because the formula for the opiate settlement was based partly on number of prescriptions written for opiates in your county. And whether it was awareness in Kansas County and these other two counties, or the major medical provider in the area doing a pretty good job of not writing too many prescriptions for opiates, we kind of came out on the short end of the stick. But we've had several conversations with, we, meaning the Association of Minnesota Counties, Representative Dave Baker, along in conjunction with the Minnesota Attorney General. There's just not a lot of value in pursuing this. And if all 87 counties, again, don't approve this, it will hold it up for the entire state. So we're kind of taking one for the team on this one, but we could oppose it if we wanted to, but to no avail.
I think my recommendation would still be to move forward and approve this resolution. Even though we aren't receiving a lot of funds, I think this is where county governments are really looking at collaboration. And that's something that I've been working with Jenny Lippert on, is how can we collaborate with maybe other county entities, organizations that we have joint powers with, things like that, that we can pull our funds together and make some type of a program.
Yeah, and I am also endorsing this, and there may be some other opportunities for counties like Kansas and Nobles, and I think it might be Le Sueur, but anyway, so the resolution 2023-14 for the opiate settlement is on the table. I'd be open for a motion to accept that.
I also move on Resolution 2023-14.
Commissioner Berg moves on 2023-14. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? There may be others coming down the road, but it's been made very clear to us that they're not going to revisit the formula. So, all right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have a number of bids to discuss and award. Mr. Odens from Public Works. Morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mel Odens, Public Works Director. What we've got is 3 consecutive bid awards to consider. Now, just to kind of bring us back, this is the first time we've done the online. The reason that we did the online was it's a virtue bid model. It's basically we're reacting to what the bidders want, quite honestly. Most counties and cities are going this way, so just so we didn't rip them open here, just as a reminder. And in the future, I think what the administrator and I will work with, but maybe our goal would be, we always have this mad scramble when we would open bids and then we try to award at the end of the bid. We might just open bids on the off week, and then that would give us a week to review the bids, and then by that Wednesday, we could get them on the agenda for the next week. And so, anyway, so with that being said, we had 3 bids that we're going to consider awarding. The first one is our bituminous project. As we all saw at Road and Bridge meeting, it was a little over 26 miles of bituminous, 80,000 tons. It was almost 500,000 over, but that's only 7.52%, which is under 10%, which plus or minus 10% on this kind of a deal is probably not considered a bad thing, even though it adds up to a lot of money when you do a lot of work. So it probably sounds bad, but we've looked at the bids, we've reviewed it, the contracts and bonds, and it's our recommendation to award the bid to Central Specialties Incorporated of Alexandria, Minnesota, in the amount of $6,556,409.57. So, Mr. Chair, I would entertain that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Odens. You've heard the staff recommendation on the bid award for bituminous. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the recommendation of staff and award the bid to.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the award of the bituminous. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? Hopefully we get started before the middle of July this year, but.
Yeah.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we have a bid award for grading and aggregate.
Mr. Chair, this is County Road 119 on the south side of Lake Wakanda. I do have one correction that I do want to make on the financial impact. This project was done under the wheelage tax. This is our 7th project we've done under wheelage tax, and we focus once again on mostly the gravel road aspect. Kind of a large project, but once again, and it's overbid. We do have the bid tab in here, but it's 6.96% over, which I think what you're seeing on this is we were hoping that the 8 to 9% inflation would level off this year. It hasn't reached the county level of leveling off. I have heard, like on some of the local urban projects, they actually have leveled off to that 3% increase. So we're at 7% increase, which maybe is a little bit of a leveling off, but it's still higher than what we had anticipated. But with that being said, it's my recommendation to award this contract CP 119-20 to John Riley Construction of Morris, Minnesota in the amount of $3,168,290.50.
So you heard staff recommendation on the award for the grading on 119. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we award the CP 119-20 contract to John Riley Construction of Morris.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on the award for County Road 119 grading and aggregate base. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second it.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any discussion?
Just a comment. What a range of bids.
Yeah,
108% over at the estimate.
yep. That's, I guess in my world, that's not uncommon.
Okay. I was wondering that. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. One more.
And then the last one is a bridge replacement on a township road, Lake Elizabeth Township. Just for referencing, this is the one on the road that goes to Harlan's place. It's the ditch just west of his place. Not that maybe that matters, but at least he gives you some perspective of where it is in Lake Elizabeth Township. It's a 10x7 box that, just a reminder, we do the work for the township and then we bill them accordingly. And then we get paid through the town bridge account. So with that being said, it's my recommendation to award the project SAP 34-599-041 to John Riley Construction in the amount of $167,277.59.
You heard the recommendation of staff on the bid for the bridge replacement. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we award the bid to John Riley Construction of Morris.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on the award. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have another bid award, and Corey Smith from the Glacier Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water District is going to present that.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Corey Smith, Director of Glacier Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water District. I'm here before you today for a notice of award for the North Shore Drive manhole replacement. We had bid opening here at the county board on March 21st, where we received 5 bids from $216,500 to $310,256. On March 27th, the Glacier Lakes Commission reviewed these bids and recommended forwarding this notice to the county board. So with that, it is staff's and the district engineer's recommendation to award the North Shore Drive manhole replacement to Crow River Construction of New London, Minnesota, in the amount of $216,500.
You heard the recommendation for the bid award for the manhole replacement. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to go with staff recommendations to have Crow River do the manhole replacement.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves to present the award to the lowest bidder. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any discussion or questions? Just for anybody listening here, this is going to be a fairly significant interruption of traffic on that road. Corey, can you tell us again what the dates are and for how long they expect you're putting the detour up? Thank you.
Yeah, so as you can see on the screen, I do have the detour up. This manhole replacement is roughly 3/4 of a mile west of Lone Tree on the north side of Green Lake. Right now, or the contract, it has to be completed prior to June 28th. The work itself should probably only take 2 weeks to complete, but right now we're thinking it'll be June, but once we would get going on the contract, we'll meet with the contractor and we'll discuss timing and scheduling. So this notice here was sent out to all the property owners along North Shore Drive that would immediately affect. And then obviously as we get closer and get more scheduling nailed down, we will provide updates to them.
Thank you. It's an inconvenience, but it's something that just simply has to be done, and we have to do it when we can dig. So, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Corey, you have also a water tower lease agreement.
That is correct. So it's a water tower lease agreement with LTD Broadband. We are currently in a 5-year agreement with them that expires on May 1st of this year. So this is basically a continuation or another 5 years of that agreement. The only thing that changed with this is the monthly amount. And also our attorney has reviewed this agreement. So with that, it's staff's recommendation to have the chair, administrator, and attorney sign on behalf of the county, entering into another 5-year agreement with LTD Broadband.
Thank you. It's a fairly modest amount of money. Is basically the increases the rate of inflation, or?
Correct, yeah, it's been standard that we've done just 2%.
Okay. All right, so you hear the recommendation of staff to renew the lease agreement with LTD Broadband. How do you wish to proceed?
I'll make a motion that we proceed with this bid. or
Commissioner
contract.
Dwayne Anderson moves to approve the lease agreement, renew the lease agreement with LTD Broadband. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. So again, I will recess the County Board of Commissioners, and in about 5 minutes, we will open up a public hearing for consideration of a housing trust fund ordinance. Just as a note, I announced before we took a break that we would go to a public hearing when we reconvene, but I forgot that the public hearing is scheduled for 10 o'clock, so we can't wait till, or we have to wait till 10 o'clock. So thank you for coming up early and being able to present. So we will have Jenny Lippert present on Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Jenny Lippert, Health and Human Services Director. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and I'm going to read a proclamation that Governor Walz put into place for Minnesota. Whereas it is critical that children are guaranteed their health, well-being, and protection. And whereas thousands of children in Minnesota are affected by child abuse and neglect each year, often causing lasting psychological, emotional, and physical effects. And whereas all families can benefit from strong support systems and resources in the face of challenges. And whereas, although intervening in the lives of children and their families is an important responsibility at all levels of government, preventing abuse and neglect is a shared obligation. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas Minnesota's enduring commitment to prevent child abuse and neglect demands that individuals and communities partner together to support parents in raising their children in a safe and nurturing society. Therefore, I, Tim Walz, Governor of Minnesota, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Child abuse prevention is a community problem, and finding solutions depends on involvement on the part of everyone throughout our community. By ensuring that communities, families, and parents possess knowledge, skills, and resources they need to care for their children, we can help promote their social and emotional well-being and prevent child maltreatment here in Kandiyohi County. With me today, I'm going to introduce our Children's Services Supervisor 2, Kathy Nelson, and she's going to give us a little bit more information about Child Abuse Prevention Month. Welcome, Kathy.
Good morning. How are you?
Kathy.
Morning.
Good. Nice to see you.
For the record, we have everybody state their name and your position.
I am Kathy Nelson. I am now the Supervisor 2 in the Children's Services Department. And what is a Supervisor 2? I'm kind of a modge podge of a lot of things in trying to help promote the work we do and really try to make sure we're as efficient as possible and using dollars that are out there maybe for grants to continue to enhance the services we're able to provide. So the other supervisors, there's 3 of them in Children's Services. Each of them have 12 people they're supervising. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but just so you know, they have a lot on their plates. So if I can take off some of the grant stuff, some of the programmatic stuff, I'm going to help with the adoption, truancy, just remove some programs off their plate so they can truly just have 12 people to supervise who do the work, the day-to-day work in child protection. This month is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we want to honor those who do child welfare work. They protect, they intervene, and they prevent further abuse by the work they do. Further, in honoring that, we need to take a look at some things. And what are some of the biggest stressors a worker has? Well, it's worker turnover. Worker turnover leaves less people that are really, truly trained to do the job. So then the person who's here maybe that year or two ends up doing even more because we have people who are behind the 8 ball. And I want to share some statistics with you. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Casey Family Foundation. That is one of the primary researchers in our nation on child welfare. A lot of grants come from Family Foundation, things like that. And so they're a foundation you can really look to if you want some statistics. And I'm going to read this. They estimate the annual turnover rates at an optimal should be between 10 and 12%. I used to supervise child welfare services about 20 years ago, and I would say my rates were maybe a little closer to that, one person a year approximately turning over. That wasn't terrible. I mean, it always causes stress on a unit, but you have enough experienced workers to cover. So it's a good thing. But nationally, in the last 15 years, turnover rates have been estimated at 20 to 40%. Think of what that means nationally. That's the average. A separate survey showed rates as high as 65%. And I think we might have been experiencing some of that. And what it says is even higher rates exist for turnover when it's new trainees. A lot of people, they go to school. What do they go to school for? Social work. Or they might be psychology majors, but a helping relationship. They want to help people. And yet, what are they forced to do? Sit at a desk, click a lot of buttons, fill in a lot of details, work with attorneys. And they have to put all these hats on that cause a lot of stress and burden in their lives, and they're not able to necessarily do what they thought they went to college to do. So that's why we lose a lot of them when they're just in the training cycle. They're figuring out, and no matter, we have videos from DHS we can send them before we hire them to show what the job really entails, but it's like you have to be in it to really understand. And if any of you would ever want to come down and see what complicated systems they have to work in, I'd be more than happy to show you. So anyway, they're saying that that is the higher rate of turnovers in new trainees. They further estimate that the cost to a child welfare agency every time a person leaves is between 30 and 200%. And that's a huge range of costs, but of course it would depend on how much we have invested in them at the time they choose to leave. They're projecting shortages. Well, this is actually the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Health Resource and Service Administration Bureau. Wouldn't you like to say you worked for them? I mean, that's a tight line. Anyway, they indicate that psychiatrists, clinical, counseling, school social workers, mental health, substance abuse social workers, school counselors, and marriage and family therapists. We will be experiencing shortages of over 10,000 full-time employees nationwide by 2025, a couple years away. So what do they say are some of the four main factors in the Casey Foundation indicates in influencing turnover? Stress, and we all know stress is in the eye of the beholder. So how you experience the same situation I experienced could cause you different stress than me. And according to your lifestyle, it could cause a difference in how that stress is experienced. Do you have a healthy way of dealing with stress or a less healthy way? Emotional exhaustion. You see families you're dealing with all day long, and some of the traumas they're experiencing, or some of the kids where you feel like your hands are tied and this is all you can do, you can't help but some nights go home emotionally exhausted because you're feeling this yourself. It's secondary trauma. Job satisfaction. Are we really looking at people and where your strengths lie and how we capitalize on your strengths and help you overcome your weaknesses? And we have to do that individually. And one of the problems in management has been we've been always a little bit lean, and this last year we kind of loosened that a little bit. But they can't even catch people when they're emotionally stressed because everybody's just about training and getting people onboarded and getting the day-to-day jobs done. And so our hope is that maybe we can intervene and help people a little bit. We have EAP. We have options for folks, but how do we help them so that they can have a different perception of the organization's commitment to employees? And that was the fourth thing. What is their perception? It's not, we can feel like we value employees totally and we're really doing a good job in that. But if they don't perceive we're doing that, so we need to kind of figure that out and put some energy toward that. Because we obviously as a county can't afford to continue the turnover rates that have existed these last years. And it's every county that's dealing with them. You go to a regional meeting and that's all you hear is, anybody got an intern right now that might make a good child protection worker? So anyway, in Kaneohe County, I'm just going to throw a couple more statistics at you, and then I'll leave you alone. We've opened 103 child protection cases last year. Average caseload might be around 12. When you really want them, we're closer to 8. We had 189 traditional investigations, 163 family assessments. We had 88 CHIPS petitions filed, meaning the family, for whatever reason, we have to step it up to a court level to get them to work with us or to overcome whatever barriers they have. 58 termination of parental rights petitions. We'd love to see those go down. And then some non-permanent or non-TPR petitions, and those cases, there were 4. And then truancy, the ones we actually had to bring to court, there were 35. So that's where we're at in the work we do. Any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Catherine,
Yeah.
that's really sobering. Because, yeah, and with family members who, in my family, who work in the helping professions. I see this when they come home, and the effect that just the everyday process takes on folks. And I'm wondering if you're not identifying something that isn't just in human services in the helping professions, but all across any organization that employs people, making sure that their needs are met as well. Last year, we had the folks coming in from Child Protective Services, I believe it was, and they took us through one day in their work. And I mean, sometimes that can be a 16, 20-hour day. I cannot imagine the stress that is placed on folks. So it is incumbent upon us, I think, as their employer, to be as supportive as possible and make sure that they're being taken care of as well. And finally, this is all about the kids. At the end of the day, this is why they're doing that work. This is about the kids. This is about the families. And it is work that for those who are in this space, I have the utmost respect. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for all of your folks who are working in this space.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just so you know, on Monday, we did, as a group of supervisors, I mean, it's small, but we had pizza, salads, we did some cookies and hung out for a little bit over lunch hour to just join together a little bit. And I think even things like that periodically help lift, we care, it shows we care. Anything else?
Commissioner Burton.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Ms. Nelson, first off, congratulations on your promotion, and your experience is going to be very valuable, and it's a good move dealing with all the challenges are going to be taking place. And it's going to be a challenging job for you, but for your staff as well. And I just want to echo Steve's feelings that, be sure to thank your staff and let them know we try really hard to understand what they're going through. I mean, that has to be so challenging every day, and you having to work with so many cases, you don't have the time to deal with them. So thank you very much for that. Do you see any optimism, with COVID and stuff kind of coming to an end? Is things going to hopefully settle out, or?
I think we're starting to see that. I'm going to say I've been part of the hiring process for last few years off and on. I kind of help out where I can. And now we've been doing more interviewing recently, and I would say the candidate pool seems to be getting better. It seems like a little more education behind people, a little more experience behind them, a little more reality maybe of what the position will entail. So I'm really hopeful. And in fact, this group of people that we have right now really get along very well. And that's part of it. Boy, if you can come back to the office after having a tough encounter and feel like you have a supportive group to work with that encourage you and help you to enjoy what we can enjoy in our job, because we need to enjoy our jobs, don't we? And we have that now. So I think there's real hope.
Good.
So, thank you. I appreciate all the time.
Commissioner Anderson had a question.
Oh, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
yep. I think I missed it, but I think you said how many work there in Child Protective Services?
How many are down there right now?
Yeah,
I think we have 42, but that includes children's mental health, and there's 5 children's
Okay.
mental health workers. And then there's several case aides that help to support these workers and
Okay.
the work that they do.
all right. Well,
So
thank
we
you.
have grown
Yeah.
tremendously, because when I supervised 8.5 years ago, almost 9 years ago, we were around 24, 25 total workers. So it has grown a lot, but wow, have the demands.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You're welcome. I'd just add a kind of a postlude note to this. You don't have to stay up there. We had an opportunity to visit or to hear a presentation from Minnesota Supreme Court Justice Ann McKeague last summer. And she stated that 80% of kids that get involved in the criminal justice system have only one ACE, adverse childhood experience. So it's the point she was trying to make is that we're missing a huge opportunity to reduce long-range costs by being involved in child protection at an early age and making sure these kids are being protected. And it's a problem that is far bigger than Kansas County. It is a societal problem, and the funding, we can do what we can do, and I will support everything we can do, but it's bigger than the county when it comes to the funding. The state of Minnesota has to be involved too. Thank you. We will now adjourn the Kansas County or recess the Kansas County Board of Commissioners. Ooh, just about ended the meeting before we got all our work done. And we will open up a public hearing for the ordinance on housing. Ms. Bankston.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jill Bankson, Executive Director for the Kansas County HRA. Today is the day you're having your public hearing to consider an ordinance to create a local housing trust fund. At the end of your public hearing, I believe you'll be considering whether or not to adopt that ordinance. In your packets are the draft ordinance, along with, which is the document you'll be taking action on. There's also, as a point of information, the policies and procedures that are in draft form that will be considered later on. And I have today to introduce some information for the public, some information about points in the ordinance here. So I'm just going to get this up quick. Let's see here.
Full screen.
All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so just some brief history here. In 2017, the Minnesota Statute 462C16 was created, allowing cities and counties to establish housing trust funds. Since then, 21 cities and counties in the state have created these funds. And the purpose of establishing one is to create a local tool to fund in whole or in part projects that meet local housing needs. Communities are in process of establishing these in order to be competitive for future state funding that'll become available only to cities and counties that have established these local housing trust funds. The ordinance has 8 subdivisions, and the following screens will just highlight a few of points in subdivisions 1 through 6. Subdivision 7 is an exception authority statement saying the board has the right to make changes to their housing trust fund, and subdivision 8 is just a statement saying when the board adopts the ordinance. So subdivision 1, I'll just read the purpose of intent of the ordinance. The purpose is to address in part the affordable housing needs of moderate, low income, and very low income households of the county by providing loans and grants to property owners, homeowners, local units of government, for-profit housing developers, and nonprofit housing developers, for the purpose of creating new affordable workforce housing, both owner-occupied and renter-occupied, acquiring and rehabbing existing affordable and workforce housing, both rental and owner occupied, acquiring, developing, and creating new mixed income housing, both rental and owner occupied, rehabbing the existing housing stock and any other expenditures consistent with Minnesota statutes 462C.16 subdivision 3. The next subdivision of the ordinance gets into definitions. There's a long list of them in there, but a couple highlights. This funding is being established to assist households that are at income levels considered very low, moderate, and, low, moderate is 115% median income, low is 80% medium, and very low is at 50% median income. And you can see what that breakdown looks like by household size. Recipients of funds can be homeowners, property owners, for-profit, nonprofit, local units of government. A for-profit developer can be an individual, a partnership, or an LLC. Partnerships and LLCs may not be eligible when their members belong to multiple partnerships or LLCs for the purpose of owning residential real estate and their properties are in deteriorating condition. Subdivision 3 gets into the trust fund sources, which can be almost anything, including private cash contributions, matching funds from state and federal programs, fees, loan payments, and recaptured principal from the activities of the trust fund, the Candy Ojai County HRA, employer-based funds and matches, Candy Ojai County funds, or any other source approved by the county board. Subdivision 4 gets into trust fund administration, and the proposal is to have the Candy Ojai County HRA administer the fund. The HRA would adopt and implement policies and procedures, establish and oversee the accounting of funds, market the availability of funds and distribute applications, and present an annual report to the county board. Trust fund uses, eligible recipients, and eligible units. Funds will be used as grants or loans to develop single-family, owner-occupied workforce housing, development of affordable rental and workforce rental, purchase and rehab of existing single-family, purchase and rehab of existing rental, match or leverage for other local, state, or federal housing programs, infrastructure improvements when 51% of the benefiting households will be at or below 150% median income. Finally, the minimum affordability term for an assisted unit shall be 15 years. If the owner violates the agreement for receiving the funds, during the term, penalties will be imposed on the owner per the trust fund policies. The assisted unit shall be deed restricted for long-term affordability. Loan agreements will be entered into with recipients and recorded as a lien against the property. When an assisted unit is sold or when a recipient becomes out of compliance, the recipient will be obligated to repay the trust fund the original loan or grant amount. With that, Mr. Chair, if you are so in agreement, I guess we are ready to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Bengtson. Before we open the public hearing I see we have a few people here who may want to visit about it. Have you received any correspondence via email, telephone, any other form of correspondence regarding this proposed ordinance?
I have not.
Okay, thank you. With that, I would then open up the floor to anyone who wishes to speak on for or against this ordinance. And if you do, if you please come to the podium, state your name, and present your case. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Kelsey Volsika. I am the Director for Family Promise of Candy Ojai County. We are a nonprofit that provides services to families that are struggling with housing instability. So I am super excited to see the trust fund here. It's something that I know a lot of individuals have pulled together and have been working very hard on. I just want to speak to what we're seeing in our organization in regards to housing instability in Willmar and surrounding counties. We don't only serve Candy Ojai County, but Candy Ojai County is our main service area. 87% of the clients that we serve internally are working at least one job or more that are suffering from housing instability. We have had a demand for services that has skyrocketed, and we are unable to meet that demand. Every dollar that we invest in housing is money that goes back to our community, so our families and children, they can contribute. Poverty in our community looks very different, and I wanted to say a few words and speak on behalf as an advocate of some of those families that we serve. So I definitely really believe in investing in housing, as when we invest in housing for our local families, we invest in our children's future. These are the children that need stability so that they can lead and develop into leadership positions in our community in the future. So I think it's really important to invest in that regard, because when we do that, we give the stability for families to really invest in other areas of their life that in turn make them contributing tax members, in turn really impact their livelihood and their ability to serve and be a part of our community in a positive aspect. Also, when we invest these dollars in housing, our crime rates go down. We're able to see a direct link between housing instability and increased crime that poverty does cause. So we're super excited that all the work that has been going on with this Housing Trust Fund, a lot of individuals have put their hard-earned time into it, and our organization definitely wants to see this happen because we really firsthand can see the impact and work with families that are suffering from this. And I think this Housing Trust Fund would really help improve some of the housing instability factors that our community is seeing the consequences of. So,
Thank you, Ms. Vasek. And I'll remind the board that this is not a time to ask questions other than to clarify something she may have said that you didn't understand. So any clarification necessary? All right. Well, then, thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on behalf or opposed to this proposed ordinance? Good morning.
Good morning, Pablo Obregon. I'm the Director for Community Growth for the City of Wilmar, and I'm here to speak on behalf of this project, especially knowing that this is an opportunity for another partnership in our county and city. And I think this is also an opportunity to partner with those who will be recipients of this trust fund. I think it's also an opportunity that we should take advantage of to help those who are living in poverty, especially, to be able to come out of this cycle. One of the statements that I read when I was thinking about housing is that this is not a handout, this is a hand up for those who are struggling financially. We are not only helping people to find affordable housing or houses, we are helping them to create homes, which I think our county, our cities in this county need to continue to help, creating a sense of belonging to those families we'll be working with. So I encourage you to approve this trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Obregon. Any clarification questions from anybody on the board? All right. Anyone else wish to speak in regard to this proposed ordinance? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this meeting. And then I will reconvene the Kennewaga County Board of Commissioners, and I guess we are scheduled to consider adoption of the ordinance today. So, you heard, you have more to present?
I do
Ms.
not.
Mason? Okay.
I do not.
So now would be the time to ask questions regarding the proposed ordinance. We did receive this draft about 4 months ago, I think. I think it was before the end of the year. And we had a chance to review it. We set up a committee. Commissioner Gardner and I met with Ms. Bankston to go over, and there were some suggestions for amendments, which had been considered, and it's been revised. And so now's the time to ask questions regarding the ordinance that is being proposed. Mr. Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we enter that discussion, I would move adoption of the Housing Trust Fund ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner moves on the Housing Trust Fund ordinance. Do I hear a second?
I will, Commissioner Berg will.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Now we'll open it up for discussion. I assume that you have something you wish to say, Mr.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jill, thank you for the presentation. And I think it's important, a couple of things to note. When we're talking about the definitions of who is going to be eligible for this in terms of folks looking for housing, we're talking about people almost exclusively who are working and who are struggling to maintain housing security within Kandiyohi County. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, definitely. And I think what we have proposed to be doing with the funds is, specifically getting at a lot of development, because there's just not enough supply for market rate, affordable, you name it. It's just needed across the board.
Sure. And just as Kelsey mentioned in her advocacy for this, most of the folks are working, and they're just struggling to make sure that they have a home. And from our previous discussion with Catherine Nelson, housing stability is going to lead to better outcomes all the way around in terms of any impacts that we might have on children and families. You have in here both grant and loan opportunities for participants, and those can be landlords, homeowners. There's really a lot here to unpack for folks, but one of the things that I'm most excited about is the opportunity for small, what I call retail landlords, to be able to get some assistance in fixing up their properties and being able to make those more desirable for tenants. Can you address that briefly?
Yes, so we crafted the ordinance to focus on, when we're looking at rehab of existing rental supply, focusing on the smaller landlords. There are, I think in the city of Willmar, there's probably at least at one time, there are at least 400 landlords in the city of Willmar or properties. So it's focusing on landlords that own 16 or fewer units in the county. And the smaller the landlord you are, the harder it is to cash flow and make capital improvements on properties. So that's why we're focusing on smaller landlords, to kind of help assist with that and keep the housing stock maintained and keep it looking good and and to attract people to be wanting to live in the county.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or wish to comment? Commissioner Berg.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to comment, as a board, COVID came about. Here we're talking about COVID again. And, board, over the years, I believe the board's looked at, different priorities. It was really pretty easy these last 4 years with the board to look at priorities. And several jumped out really big time, broadband issues, housing, childcare, and mental health. And this really does fit in those 4 priorities as a board we look at. Not only that, but I have a feeling the board is wanting to move and get some movement in this direction. And this is a good start. I think it's a start, but I think it's a great start. And I think it's really well focused and well planned out. And I'd like to give some kudos to Commissioner Gardner. He's the one who started this with the board, I think, spearheading the need for housing. And I think we all jumped on board with him. And so thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Anyone else? I would just add, excuse me, home ownership is an American institution, and it's harder today than it probably any time in 100 years to become a homeowner. So it's important that we address all forms of housing, not just housing ownership, but unfortunately, not everybody is at a spot where they can afford to own a home. It'd be great if we could work towards that for everyone. And both presenters from the public hearing gave a very admirable argument from a social aspect. But there's also an economic development aspect that's very important here. You know, when we have adequate housing, we can attract workers to the area. We can grow our tax base. We can stabilize our school districts with children going into those schools. So I think this is really a good step forward. And part of it is just making up for lost time that happened following the banking debacle of 2008 when housing starts basically ended for a period of years. And so now we're trying to backfill that vacuum that was created at that point. So I'm really excited about some of the things that I'm hearing in the community, and I think this will only go towards helping keeping that excitement going. So, Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. And before we take this vote, I just wanted to thank both of the members of the public whom and I think several of us at least know personally, to Mr. Obregon, welcome home. We're happy to have you back in our community. And as you said, partnering with the city of Willmar is one of our goals as well. And to Kelsey Vasika from Family Promise, I was able to tour their new family shelter over in Willmar Old Town last week, and it was it's going to be a great facility for families who are experiencing that extreme level of home insecurity, housing insecurity. So thank you for your efforts and the efforts of your organization, and hopefully we can have you up here sometime to talk a little more about that.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. I will remind the board that at this point, we're adopting or not adopting a resolution. We are not having a discussion necessarily about how we fund the trust fund. So, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much for all your hard work. Thank you, testifiers, for coming in, and have a good day.
Thank you.
All right. See if I can find my spot back in the
Yeah.
agenda.
No.
So we have Mr. Odens from the Public Works to talk about the Willmar Wise surplus land auction results. Mr.
Yeah,
Odens.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, once again, Mel Odens, Public Works Director. Last week on March 30th, we held a auction for surplus lands. It consisted of 44.74 acres. It's up on your screen. You also have it in your packet. But at the January 3rd meeting, we employed the services of Flattable Auctions to conduct our both online auction and in-person auction. And we decided to do it that way versus sealed bids because of the activity on this land. What you see here is all the land that we had for sale, which is tract 1, which is, for the sake of, maybe zoom out just a little bit, Kelsey, one click maybe. Okay, this is Highway 12 right here as you go west toward Pennock. And so this is the township road that goes down to Epitopix, the old fabric warehouse, that area. Our old Highway 55 used to go right here. And so this property was kind of isolated and part of the negotiation. It's a 12.5 acre piece. That's tract 1, then tract 2 was the old farmstead of John Quam. That's his old farmstead right here. And then north of it is, this is hashed out because of purposes of deed restriction for residential occupation. And then this tract 3 was the other one. So with all that being said, it just kind of gets you where we were. We had minimum bids put on these. So parcel 1, we had a 5,000. Well, this is tract 2, this is our parcel 1. It's a little bit confusing, but just bear with me. We had minimum of 5,000 an acre. We were able to get the minimum bid of 5,000 an acre. Tract 2, which was the larger piece, the 27 acre, there was a little over 5 acres that was restricted in terms of wetland or drainage that's non-buildable. So we had a net part of that was 22 acres. We were able to get our minimum bid of the 10,000 an acre for the tillable, so we felt good about that. And then the last one was this piece over here that we had 3,000 an acre on, and we actually got $4,100 an acre. So we exceeded our expectation or the minimum bids that the board had put on this. So the net difference of that is we had a net gain of $13,787, and we would use that to offset some of our title work, survey work, some admin costs. So with that, Mr. Chair, there really is no action, but we did tell the board back in January that we would report out once the sale is done. So with that being said, this money goes to offset, this is the first offset of the little over $1.8 million that we put into this. And so we're going to slowly chip away at that. So
It's a small chip, but it's a chip. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Odens? All right, well, thank you for the information.
Yep.
Glad we've also checked the box on that property thing. This has been ongoing for a couple of years already, and,
Yep.
you know, as we complete the Wilmer Y project, there's some of these steps needed to be taken.
yeah, and Mr. Chair, I probably should have said we got, if you add all this up, it's just short of $300,000, $296,087.
Thank you. Should we go to the last item? All right. We're gonna, if it's okay with everybody, we'll skip the ARP or jump the ARP discussion because our presenters are here for the 1055 item. And thank you guys for coming in. If you would want to step forward and give us a debriefing, if you will, or update on the train derailment at Raymond.
Whatever you guys would like. Good morning. Well, you
You want
probably
to
seen a
identify
lot.
yourself for the people
Oh.
that might be listening?
Eric Tollefson, Kansas County Sheriff.
Stephanie Felt, Kansas County Emergency Management Director.
Thank you.
So Stephanie and I were just discussing what it is you guys would like to hear. I guess a lot of the stuff has been in the news and we don't know, I mean, everything from video footage, drone footage to, you know, we can give you a quick rundown as to how the morning developed. It was, call came in at about 1 minute to 1 a.m. on the 30th. I was just looking here. It looks like everybody got dispatched. We knew very quickly as to the contents or the what was actually on fire. Looks here about 3 minutes after 1, we knew that ethanol was on fire. First unit on the scene was Raymond Fire, of course, being in Raymond. They were there at 8 minutes after 1. I got called at about 10 after 1 by the Chief Deputy Kent Bauman and went en route myself. So pretty much something like this, everybody goes. So, basically, I know when you got notified, when you got notified, go ahead.
So I got called by Chief Deputy Bauman as well, and the main concern that we had was getting mobile command posts down there to stage unified command, but also with evacuation efforts, where are all these people going to go? So what worked well for us in this circumstance is we have been training with both the CERT team and the American Red Cross for this type of situation. So Deputy Director Ace Bonema was instrumental in getting that school set up, making sure all the comforts were there and everybody had what they needed when they got to the site. We had a couple of people who didn't have transport. So Raymond Ambulance was key, helping with transportation there. And also, I want to give a shout out to the local firefighters and Kansas County Rescue Squad, who went door to door and made sure that everybody was notified of this. So it worked well in this case, that the emergency alert was sent out. So people's phones a lot of times had woken them up. But then it was also nice that familiar faces were the ones knocking on the door, because it's a scary thing. So at last count, this isn't a confirmed number, but we had about 125 people who actually went to the shelter. Others went elsewhere outside of the perimeter. And we had 9 dogs. So that's another thing that we we start having to plan for is kenneling and supplies and things like that. But everybody was well behaved, and I think the process went very, very well because the community jumped in, the Red Cross jumped in. Warren Damhoff is the emergency manager in Raymond, and he already had some supplies that we had pre-staged because of the blizzards. Again, lessons learned. So cots were set up, blankets. So I really think that the training and the relationships we had built ahead of time really were key on this. And I'm thanking every agency that showed up to help support those community members who were scared and woke up in the middle of the night. So it really, I asked, what's the vibe over at the shelter? And what I heard from both the CERT volunteers running it and the community members was there's just a feeling of calm. We're just kind of waiting until the time to go back. And that's what I want to hear, because we want to know that the community feels like they were responded to well and that they have the information they need.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
Go ahead and then.
Okay.
I was just going to mention, I was down at the community center this morning and spoke with several people that had been evacuated. And I think I had mentioned early on that we probably went to about 250 households. And when I say we, it's, Rescue Squad, Raymond Fire. I think even there was some Kirkland Fire guys that got down there and they weren't needed at the scene. So we put them to work going door to door. Then just keeping that organized was kind of a task too. But then once everybody started reporting in to me as to what street they had been down and wherever, and if they, came across somebody who refused to leave or something like that, we would document that. But there was a lot of unanswered doors. I mean, people, seems like everybody has a CPAP machine or something like that nowadays. So it's like they don't wake up. But I was visiting with a few people down in Raymond, and they said, well, the local guys and gals, they just went in because they knew who it was, and they started yelling at them. So it was actually kind of, so that's the advantage of having local folks there, because we wouldn't go into the house. I mean, unless of course we knew the person, but it's like, the firemen that are just like, oh, the door is open, we'll get Janice up or whoever it was, and it was, so it worked out pretty good. So, but yeah, you had a question?
I did. I wanted to maybe if you can remind the public too on the Smart 911 and registering, because I think that the majority of the people did have that on their phones and were notified. So can you maybe explain that a little bit?
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Well, Smart 911 is something you voluntarily sign up for different alerts. What happened in this circumstance was a wireless emergency alert. So dispatch pretty much drew a perimeter around the area that needed to evacuate, and that...
Does it act like an Amber?
Yeah, kind of like you get the Amber Alert. So if you have a cell phone, you're supposed to get that message.
If it's next to you, the way those things go off, it should wake you up. But
Oh, yeah, I've had a warning telling me there's a blizzard coming tomorrow morning at 2:00 in the morning. It woke me up, trust
The
me.
downside.
So there are some caveats. Sometimes it's glitchy and for whatever reason, a person won't get it. We're trying to work that out with the software. However, everybody within the perimeter is supposed to be getting that alert. We're very limited into the amount of characters. So really it was train derailment, evacuate to Prindsburg. What we want to say is, get your medicine, get your pet and their supplies. Yes, you can put some pants on if you don't want to go in your pajamas, but we can't really do all that. We're so limited in the characters. But like I say, it was nice that at least that went out and people were kind of like, what's this all about? And then you get a knock on the door and it's a firefighter who's a friend of your son. It's like, you know, that part of it, I think, works well.
It did. I mean, we were not met with any resistance or anything. People were very, very, I mean, considering they woke up in the middle of the night, you know, it was pretty amazing. But yeah, everybody did. I was surprised at how smoothly it went. I mean, it went quickly too. I mean, by the time Stephanie had the motorhome down there and we were setting up the command post, we were pretty much wrapped up with, we had actually on the north side of it, the area that was closest to the actual fire, that northwest side of town, was actually gone through twice. So, I mean, we actually, you know, doubled that up and did what we could. So, but everything was in our favor. I mean, everything from wind direction to the forecasted wind direction to the substance that was actually on fire. I mean, you know, it was, and the actual location of the derailment was, I mean, another 300 yards to the east would have been a completely different story. I mean, we would have probably punctured some grain bins and that kind of thing, so.
Well, in one of the articles, an evacuee at the shelter was quoted as saying, it's almost like this was planned. And I thought, well, that's because it was, you know, we did plan for that. And every situation is different, but as long as you have good relationships with the response agencies and we're all kind of on the same page, that's what it takes. And another thing that I think went well, and Sheriff can speak to this too, is that Burlington Northern, with their incident command, we were able to embed, because we had Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management, and Raymond Fire as our local unified command. We were able to work with them on the public information releases that went out and just the regular briefings. So they were very good to work with, I think,
They were,
as
yeah.
far as command structure.
Yeah, that went pretty seamlessly, actually. I mean, what the hang up when you do that is, you know, every agency that's contributing to this, I mean, BNSF would, or whoever would draft the initial release or release of information, then would send that to all of the contributing organizations or agencies, and then everybody would chime in, make sure that it looked good, and then we opted for our Facebook page for all of the releases, and we told everybody that called in a dispatch, and I mean, everybody was directed to that, and got a lot of really good comments on how timely that was, and it worked really well. I mean, we could do it from this in my pocket, so it worked out good. It just, a little spotty reception down in Raymond, but other than that, it was pretty good, so.
Well, thank you so much for the update, and I think all of that training that you do all these years, and you hope you never have to use it, just like your insurance policy on your house,
Right.
has paid off. And not only that, I mean, there's so many people that got involved, Public Works and MnDOT and the citizens and the churches and the schools. I mean, what was cool, it was all within just a few miles of Raymond.
Right.
We're really, I mean, certainly BNSF played a big role in this, but it was really great to see all those parts come together and to see
Right.
those of you that had to coordinate those parts once they were there, because that in itself can be a job to say, okay, who's going to be responsible for waking up and doing the evacuation and who's fighting the fire. So kudos to all of you and all those that aren't here for the job that was done. Is there others that want to make?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment, what a year. When you look back of our emergency services in our county, and it really is good reflection on the positive results in all of them. You know, the turkey flu, last summer's storms, you know, that was really significant. The winter storms with everybody. And now this major train derailment. So, you know, it was, Commissioner Emdek talked about, kudos to you. Wow, this has been a major year, but it's really good pre-planning and good government. And thank you. And be sure you let all the other people know how we feel.
Yeah, it's
so
indicative
thankful.
of the kind of people that we have in our community. I mean, they don't really even have to be asked. I mean, they literally just appeared out of nowhere and went to work and made our job a lot easier. So, I mean, yeah, it was pretty fantastic, actually.
I did have one question. Somebody asked me, what direction was the train going?
East.
Oh, it was going
Yeah, I was
east.
traveling towards Wilmer.
Oh, it was traveling towards
Yes.
Wilmer.
Yeah.
And it was probably going to go on the Y?
I'm not sure where it was actually headed. It was heading up from Marshall, I believe.
Yeah.
It was a
Came out of Sioux
short.
Falls, yeah.
Okay, it was a short train. It was only 40 cars long.
So, and,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
And there was corn syrup as well?
There was
What a
the damaged
mess to
cars.
clean up.
Yeah, the damaged cars. The ones that were on fire were ethanol, and then corn syrup was also cars were damaged, and then there was also at least one hopper car full of corn meal that was in the midst of it as well. But yeah, as far as contents can go, you know, some of the things that are hauled on our railways. I mean, this was, you know, we were pretty lucky with that.
Yes.
And like bird flu of 2015, I think it was, right? The first one? I'm sure, as well as everything went, you maybe saw one or two things that said, that made you think, if this happens again, maybe this is how we'll deal with it. So there's also that opportunity.
Always
We're going to
learn.
put a coffee pot in the command post.
Little things make a difference.
Learned how to fire up the furnace.
We
So-
did, and we learned that everybody with a crock pot shows up to help, and they're very good cooks, so I think we put on weight.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, we did.
So,
All
but
right.
it was appreciated.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you for doing a good job. You made us look good, and because I didn't have to show up or anything, and part of our training was stay the heck away when something like this goes, because we just get in the way. And that, another thing, one example of how organized they were, and that maybe it was just the people in the community, I don't know, but because they all stepped in too, was that I heard Deb Brandt, Commissioner Gardner and me, we met with her a little bit yesterday, and she works with the Raymond Ambulance, a volunteer there, and she said by 3 a.m. they were serving pancakes. So it was very well organized, and everybody pitched in the way it sounds. So it was a really good thing. You know, something good came out of a major disaster, I guess. So.
Anyone else? Well, with that, we will let you get back to whatever you were doing, and thank you again for coming up and debriefing us.
Thanks, commissioners.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we are, other than our updates, we are to our last item on the agenda, the ARP update.
Commissioners, again, Kelsey Baker, County Administrator. So before you, I included the ARP funds. Let me find it here. Okay, and so the intent to add it on the agenda today is just to give you an overview. No decision, just discussion, some recommendations, as you see, for some of the remaining dollars. But really just to get a perspective of and a recap of where we have spent the dollars. A lot of the dollars have not been spent, where we're allocating. If you are hearing from your constituents, something that you want to relay to me that we can maybe figure out a program or funding for that, this would be the time to kind of provide some direction for me. And then maybe moving forward in June or July when we're looking at budget, we can revisit this and have the broadband committee chair come back and provide more of a broadband update as well. But just to recap, Candy Ohio County received around $8.3 million of American Relief Plan dollars, and about 75% of that went towards broadband efforts. And so that was about $6.29 million that's going towards broadband. not a lot of that has been spent yet. We're still working. We have come really far on working with townships and getting agreements, but not a lot of that has been spent. And we'll, like I said earlier, we'll have more of an update on that in a few months here. So then the remaining of those dollars is around 2 million. Prior to me coming here, we've allocated around 150,000. We have spent 131,700 for IT, cybersecurity. And then some public works, around 55,000. Health and Human Services staffing, some Glacial Lake sewer and water equipment, a grant writer. And then for the EDC childcare grant, 150,000. That childcare grant is already up and running, so that's really good. And that was a match, 150,000 match, also with the city of Willmar, were the efforts for that. And so that puts us at about 1.187 million for the remaining dollars. And we have the Housing Trust Fund part of my recommendation would be that we would put some ARP dollars into the Housing Trust Fund to start that fund. And then another part of the remainder dollars of that 500,000 would be technology needs. And so when I say IT upgrades, that's not necessarily meaning cybersecurity. That might mean board equipment, board technology that is sitting behind your desk there. TVs for meeting space rooms that Health and Human Services, the downtown office, county attorney, public works, that we all utilize our meeting spaces and we need to update our technology there. It might mean licensing fees. So there's one-time funds that we could use for licensing in Health and Human Services and Public Works, Administration, IT, maybe to update some of our technology and software for the staff's needs as well. And so really that would be my recommendation, the 500,000 towards the Housing Trust Fund, the 500,000 towards technology needs. So that would leave around 187,475 remaining that would not be allocated. Just to remind everyone, the funds have to be allocated by December 31st, 2024, and then they have to be spent by December 31st, 2026. So we do have some time. But like I said today, if there's anything that you're hearing, please let me know, in the next few months, and I can bring this back to the full board for more of a decision. But I just wanted to put this before you, and this is what my recommendation is moving forward. I won't move forward on any of the remaining dollars allocation, but if there's something specific that you want me to look into, please let me know, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Before I go to your question or comment, I just want some clarification. So in the yellow bar, I'm seeing it as yellow or salmon, whatever you want to call it. We've paid out two items of 131,700 and 55,551. But we're calling the HHS staffing unspent and the generator unspent. They're committed, but we haven't written the checks yet. Is that
correct?
Okay. And so
the generator, I think, will be soon.
In 2 weeks.
Yep, soon. So that one will be spent then. So now we have this spreadsheet to work more off and what's spent and what's unspent.
Okay.
And so I really wanted to get a spreadsheet to start tracking those dollars. So like that, the staffing needs, that's something that was approved prior to my time here. So I just put that in. That is something we'll probably recap at the end of the year.
And again, bear with me for a minute. Regarding the broadband, you made the comment, there's a lot of money that is unallocated, well, it's not unallocated, unspent yet. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're using that as matching funds for border-to-border grants. So
correct.
While in our discussions, we have suggested commitments for where those funds should go, they aren't going to get spent, and we don't know until we find out about the border-to-border grants, or lack of them, because some of them may get used where we fail to get a border-to-border grant. So anyway, Commissioner Berg, you would...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a couple comments, and you're looking for some feedback as well. I'm feeling really good about the broadband, the dollars we're putting in there, feeling good about the housing priority. I'm thinking of two other things that we need to focus on, and the other one would be childcare. Is there more we could be doing in childcare and along that line? But also then I have a personal concern. I did not come prepared today to give a presentation for the need there, but I am on the Prairie Lakes Youth Program board, and that, I think of our jail, I think of housing, well, and a business, and even though they're doing better, the Kansas County owns the building, and yet Prairie Lakes Youth Program is supposed to maintain that building as far as furnaces and so forth, and I know the county's helped out a little bit, but they've had an outage and a heat pump replaced this winter, and there's a lot of maintenance going on there that needs to be maintained more, and it is our building, even though the lease agreement with Prairie Lakes Youth Program, they are paying rent towards us as well, and so we're recouping about $6,000 a month or $72,000 a year. And this has been in operation for a long time, plus we get a reduced rate, so financially it's a business, it's important for us, it's like the jail. We have people from other areas come and stay there, but it's also very valuable if we didn't have it for our kiddos here locally, and it's really focused on rehab. And so I'm thinking I'd like to see some of those dollars of the $187,000 that's left over go there, and I'd be happy to come back with a presentation of and involve Prairie Lakes Youth Program in that presentation, how they could be used more specifically. It's a big need. So those kiddos, I look at our beautiful county jail that we have, and then I go to the one, basically the program we have for our children, and a regional treatment center building that's well over 100 years old, and even though there's been some updating, it's a big old institution, and any help there would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Anyone else wish to comment? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelsey, thank you for bringing this forward. I know that it's been some time since we've revisited the ARPA funding discussion, and I'm very appreciative of the funding that we placed so far in the childcare arena. Those funds, along with the City of Wilmer's funds, also helped the folks who are working within that program to receive a $200,000 grant from DEED by leveraging those funds. And that was second only to, I think we were told, the City of Duluth in terms of the total grant funding for childcare that came around that last time. I suspect, as Commissioner Berg said, that may be an area that we may need to revisit in some fashion. Though that DEED funding has to be spent by the end of this year. So I know they're working hard to bring the programming forward and increasing childcare slots across all of Kandiyohi County. I'm also appreciative of the funding that's being suggested for the Housing Trust Fund. I was thinking a slightly larger number than that, but this is well, I like to think a little larger when it comes to housing, because if we look at housing and childcare and economic development, that's that three-legged stool upon which a lot of what happens in the lives of everyday people revolves around. If you have housing, if you have quality childcare, affordable childcare, and then you're able to participate fully in the workforce, and that only helps our employers as well. So this is really one of those unified types of areas where all of these different things are important. And so I look forward to continuing the discussions as we move along, and also the larger discussions of how do we more fully advocate at the state level for the types of things we need. I'm a little unhappy with the legislature today. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then also what we can continue to do on behalf of all of our citizens here in Kandiyohi County, and for that matter, the entire region.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Any other comments?
If I may, quick, the EDC here has rolled out their childcare grants, and it's on their website. Later on in the agenda, you'll be noting that we're going to have a Facebook page for the county. We'll be sharing that, but in-home daycares will receive up to $12,500, and centers could receive up to $40,000. So that is a huge area for growth in our childcare. You look at in-homes, and it's not necessarily that we might add slots for children, but we are going to maintain the slots that we currently have. And those in-home daycares, some of them might have had to close because they might need a new water heater, or they have to update something in their home. And now with this opportunity for this grant, that will help bridge that gap. So that's a really good program for the overall county.
Okay. So I would just make the comment, Commissioner Gardner mentioned the the legislature, and I think there'll be more clarity to our discussion when the session ends, because we'll know where some of the bills have landed. For example, broadband was recently cut in half, more than cut in half, the amount for the border-to-border grants over the next biennium. If that number stays, that certainly will affect the opportunities throughout all of Minnesota and ourselves. Housing, there's a fair amount of money in there for housing. Both the federal government and the state government have some dollars in for cybersecurity. So once those things have played out, we'll have a little more clarity as to where we should direct our remaining dollars. And I think it's about this time next year where we should probably start getting a little nervous if we have quite a few funds available that have yet to be committed. So, and certainly we'll find a place for them. It's just that there's a few unknowns yet at this point. So, Commissioner Burke.
Mr. Chair, just to kind of follow up, and I want to say thank you, Administrator Baker, for bringing this forward, and that we can look at this and the transparency of it. This is really good to know where we're at. And kind of what you're just saying then, with the idea, can we look at the idea of possibly after the legislature that we just had a repeat of this same conversation here at the board and could firm things up a little bit more then?
Absolutely.
Would that
And at that time, maybe we'll be able to be a little more firm on where we think some of those dollars should go. Should we add some? Should we take some away from different
look at things
areas?
entirely
Are there some new things that come up? So,
good? That's a good idea.
Commissioner Dale Anderson.
I guess for me, as a person coming in new, this is really nice to see this. I have had a few people ask how much money we have left for the ARPA dollars, so this really kind of lays it out. And I think we've done a good job, like you guys have all said, about where this money's been spent. So I think we should be proud of that.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, Administrator Baker. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda. We will take a few minutes to report out. Kelsey, would you like to start?
Sure.
Even though you're making your way back to the seat, but
That's okay. So you have on your agenda the county Facebook page, which I just touched on a few seconds ago. This is something that I have heard from staff, I think is a great tool for, I'm going to quote Commissioner Burke right now, good government. You know, there's lots of things that we do that can be looked at in a negative light, misconception, misinformation. And so creating this Facebook page and having a social media account will provide the county to educate the public on what our services are. And our services just aren't putting people in jail, taking your children away, things like that, the bad. Some of it is reminders to pray your, deadlines, paying your property taxes. If you sold your estate or you sold your house, we can help with recording, things like that. And so road closure notice that's going to be happening on the north side of Green Lake. That is something that we can let the public know. And it's just one more way of communication to tell our side of the story, more or less. So that was why I asked for approval of the updated social media policy. And the department heads are aware of this. We already have some images to go live on our Facebook page later today and this week. And so the staff seem really excited about getting our information out there. So if it's okay, our Facebook page will go live this afternoon.
All right.
Yeah, it's exciting.
You said if it's okay, are you asking for our blessing on that, or?
Maybe more of a blessing.
It's fine with me.
Okay. Other than that, I've been busy. I attended the AMC Leadership Summit. I'll be really quick. Last week with Roger and Dale, and that was really beneficial. He talked about it was more of a leadership style for yourself. It wasn't maybe about leading a team per se, but more about who you are. And kind of what Kathy Nelson talked about is how do you value yourself? And I just was talking with Shelby earlier today, and I really truly believe if you can look in the mirror and value yourself, then in return you will feel valued by others. And sometimes that will help our job. Just a really quick update. I'm still working on the reorganizational structure at the downtown office. Jenny Lippert has submitted her resignation. You all are aware of that. And so we'll be working on the future of the Health and Human Services Department. So we've had some personnel meetings on that. And I think that's about it. I can just touch on.
I think we started with Dale last time, so Commissioner Gardner, if you're ready to go, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Suffice it to say, there's been a couple of meetings. One was a meeting and work session with West Central Industries. Had a consultant come in and just do some more visioning for that organization. There are a lot of challenges, obviously, coming out of COVID with all sorts of organizations similar to West Central Industries, and those challenges, I think, will be ongoing. But there's a good board and good financial structure in place for now to be able to continue that mission. I also covered the counties for Counties Providing Technologies meeting for Chair MDEC a week ago Monday, and there's a little bit of restructuring going on potentially within that organization as well in terms of mission delivery. So that will be an interesting thing. I alluded to this just a couple of moments ago in that I'm a little unhappy on the housing front with the legislature as it stands. Recently, there were a couple of bills, House File 1419 and Senate File 1752, that would have created a statewide aid program direct to counties and cities to develop and preserve affordable housing. This was something that AMC has strongly supported, and neither of those are included in the omnibus bill as of this moment. I'm hopeful that there can be some reconsideration of that. But to let you know what the impacts of that would be, this would have potentially allowed additional funding to come through something like a housing trust fund or specific projects. And I know there's other housing money out there, but this would have been direct aid. We would have seen, had the bill passed as presented, just under $1.5 million a year to be able to put towards affordable housing here in Kandiyohi County. The city of Willmar would have received around $330,000. Again, because this is so important in so many different areas, I'm hopeful that this legislature will see the current error of their ways and revive this funding in some way, shape, or form. Because if you can bring this direct to your local community, as opposed to having it come down from on high and then, death by 1,000 grants occurs, and having to go through that process. We know what we need, especially here in Kandiyohi County, where we already have a fully completed housing study and recommendations that are just waiting to be implemented. So hopefully we'll see some change in that, and that's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner Dwayne Anderson?
Yep. So since our last county board meeting, I've had several other committee meetings. Let's see, UCAP, which was pretty much just a normal meeting. I had Pioneer Land Library System executive finance meeting. In there, we kind of went over a compensation study. I guess it's kind of the first one I've been to, or where we've had one of those studies done since I've been a commissioner. And I would kind of recommend it to any other committee that has a lot of employees under, under a director like that, to maybe consider doing a compensation study, because we've had a hard time in the last couple of years to fill positions, and different committees I've been on, like Central Community Transit, part of the problem is maybe we're not paying enough, and it would be nice to see where we are as far as, those different types of departments, if we should be paying more, or what we should be doing to draw more employees towards those positions. And then I also had a Emergency Services Board meeting up in St. Cloud on the 29th. After that, since I'm new on that board, I had a training session that went till about 4 o'clock. That morning also, we had a Central Community Transit meeting, and that was to go over resumes for individuals to fill Tiffany's position there. One encouraging thing with that was there were 13 applications that we went through, and we narrowed it down to about 5. We got a couple on reserve in case a couple people get jobs before we interview, and we're scheduled to do interviews on 10th of April is when we're going to try to do interviews for that. And let's see, then of course last weekend we had the railroad issue, and so I just kind of I sat way back on the sidelines. I just sent Stephanie Felt a text just saying, I'm watching or paying attention to what's going on, but I'm staying out of the way, because that's kind of what we were trained to do. But I just said, I'm available if you have anything you need, but I don't know what that would have been. So anyway, so that's pretty much my last couple weeks. So
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Dale Anderson.
Yeah, I've had a couple of meetings. I went, like Kelsey said, to the leadership thing. That was very interesting. Anything we can do like that to improve ourselves, I guess, is a good thing. There was things, I guess, that I was looking for, and I thought that they did address it, how to talk to people and how to listen to people that have concerns, and I found that very interesting. A couple of the other things, we had a short little meeting on Ditch 27. We're trying to revive that discussion again to maybe get something done with that project in the future. One thing that's more of a personal thing than probably a board thing, but I kind of had a mission when I was running for office to try and stay connected with the townships. So I started going to some of the township meetings and hearing concerns that they have. And it's probably a bad time to go to them because it's all about roads and and what's going on with the melt of the spring. But I think it's good to stay connected. It's a thing that they're concerned about, is having some connection with the county, and I think it's good to do that. On Friday night, after I got back from the leadership thing, I went to the Fortress Banquet. Found it very interesting. It's a great program, I think, that we have. We don't have anything to do with as a county, but it was interesting to hear the amount of people that are involved and the amount of support that they have from the community. I think it's a great program for people coming out of substance abuse and coming out of jail, and works good. And I gained a lot of respect for Mel and his crew on the way home that night. I left Wilmer at 8:35, and I got to my house at 10 to 10. So the roads were absolutely gone. It was just white, and there was just white snow everywhere. But I really think that we do owe Mel's crew a lot of respect and a lot of thank you for what they have went through this winter. I mean, it's been brutal, and that was brutal. And I've seen plows on the road when we went home. So I think that crew does an exceptional job of keeping these roads open for emergencies, and that's a cool thing that we need to keep in mind. The one other meeting I went to was a leisure meeting and tourism meeting. And we had it this time at the Raptor Ridge Museum, which is east of New London on Highway 40. Very interesting. I'd never been there. I've driven by it and see the dinosaur out by the road, but never actually got to see it. And if anybody is ever interested in going to that, just give them a call. You can look it up on the website. Just look up Raptor Ridge Museum, and they are willing to do tours. It's a neat thing. It's all stuff that they have collected personally themselves, and having a shed in behind their house that people could come and look at anytime they want. So it was real interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on in the county for tourism coming up. Waiting for ice to get off the lakes and things to get more spring, but there'll be some interesting events coming up in the spring for tourism in our area also. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Berg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I'd like to report on the Central Community Transit System, and we had our meeting in Olivia, and it was the day of the storm, but luckily the storm held off until that night, unfortunately for you, but I was able to get down there and back. It was kind of icy to start with, but returning was just fine. The CCT, the main thing I want to update is that they're still looking for a new director, and they got 13 applicants, and we have it's a fairly large board, so we have a committee that's going through all this. And that committee felt very positive about it. They narrowed the 13 applicants, they said were all really good, and they narrowed it down to 5. And at this point then the board, instead of the whole board trying to interview 5 people, we said go ahead and pick somebody. And so they're going to come back to us. So I'm hoping to hear something maybe in the next few weeks, the results and report back. We don't have a board meeting right away, but I'll be hearing that, and we can report back who the new director will be. Also, I just want to talk about Woodlands just briefly. We, as a board, could probably take some action now, or just actually maybe just put it off until next board meeting. But I want to give you a heads up. Woodland Centers has 2 board members from Kandiyohi County, and historically has been one of the commissioners, and then also the Health and Human Services Director, or the Human Services Director. And that started way, way back. It was that way. And it's been that way for a very, very long time. Now with the changes coming up right now, and Woodlands has changed too. Woodlands has grown a lot. And so they have a committee that they meet with on a regular basis, and that's the Health and Human Service Directors. So they are on a committee, and they go through a lot of stuff with that group as well. And I talked to Director Lippert, I talked to Administrator Baker briefly about this, and myself has a feeling that maybe that position should be filled now with another commissioner from our board. And maybe we can bring that back, and if you think about, want to go that way. Now, Woodlands actually approves, so we can appoint somebody, but they officially approve that, but there should not be any issues, let's put it that way, that I foresee from that. But, you know, think in terms, if we do appoint another person besides myself on the Woodlands board, that if you'd be interested in it or not. It meets on the 3rd Thursday of every month. And there's 2 committees generally, and one would be the program committee, so a new person would be coming on the program committee, and they meet quarterly, I believe, quarterly. And normally they're right before the regular board meeting. So the regular board meeting is at 3 o'clock on the 3rd Thursday, and committee meetings are like at 2 o'clock. So just file that in the back of your mind, if you would, please. And then I just want to give you an update on Southern Prairie Community Care, and I was looking forward to the meeting this month, or last month, and because we were going to officially close it down, and we needed 100% of the people there, of the 14 counties. Well, believe it or not, one county did not show up. So everybody drove to Redwood Falls for this meeting, and we had to postpone that until later this month, and hopefully we'll be able to drag everybody there so we can vote on it officially. I'm not sure what happened. We tried to get hold of the person from that county, but they weren't available. but they had planned to be there, what we were told, as we were trying to say, where's so-and-so? So, I don't know how, but it's in the bylaws, and when this organization was formed, they put it in the bylaws that it had to be 100% vote to close it down. And so here we are. So I'll give you an update after the next meeting. So that's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Berg. I hope it wasn't me that no-showed you. So.
No. It wasn't our county. It was a county way far south.
So I will sound like I'm rambling a little bit here because I'm hearing about a bunch of different things and maybe try to make some connections between them. But first of all, I too was at the leadership conference, and I hadn't been to one in a long time simply because our Amish Furniture Show in Ohio, almost said Hawaii, I wish, in Ohio always conflicts with the same weekend as a leadership conference. But I highly recommend it if future conferences, if somebody wishes to attend. And then Dale made the comment about, Commissioner Dale Anderson made the comment about staying connected with the townships. I thought our meeting on the 20th, which was, I think, since our last board meeting, we had the Kaneohe County Township Association meeting, and those are really, I think those are really valuable to let the townships and the county know how we can work together to, on our public works and on any other issues that affect both the townships and the county. So that was good. We were all there. Commissioner Dwayne Anderson, first of all, I applaud you for doing the right thing and staying away. It seems like some of the hierarchy above us couldn't restrain themselves from having to show up, even though it's the county that has all the ability to do the work. Of course, they make policy for perhaps future, legislation that will create safer railroad zones. But anyway, I'm glad you were paying attention. But you brought up something earlier about understanding what some of these different organizations do. I'm thinking, coming to mind for me is Mid-Minnesota Development Commission. Up until the last couple of years, and I've been a commissioner now for 10 years, a little over 10 years, I didn't have a lot of clue as to what MMDC did or could do. I think Michelle Moratsky gave the best definition at that township meeting, where she says, we're kind of like the EDC, only we cover a region rather than just a county. That was almost a revelation to me, because prior to that, I didn't really know. And I think, like, if they gave a presentation to us, along with the Soil and Water Conservation District and the other agencies that we come in contact with on a regular basis, for us to have a better understanding, and for the public who pays attention to this to have a better understanding of what they do would be helpful. My sort of key report out since last meeting probably would be the Highway 23 day at the Capitol. So we was Highway 23, but we took that opportunity to not only talk about Highway 23, we talked about those of us commissioners that were there, and they weren't all commissioners, about other issues like bonding. Public Works Director Mel Odens and I visited the offices of our senator and representative to express to them how important that bonding bill was to us. We had, we're like over everything for the last 5 years.
Yep.
We're baseball season is just getting started. We're in a hell of a slump in Kaneohe County in terms of bonding projects, and hopefully we have one that gets through the current bonding process, and which is really disheartening when you think about the big surplus that we have and 5 years slump, and now we're going to get maybe one small project that comes out of it. And hopefully through the omnibus bill we can capture a few more things, but it makes a big difference to counties and townships for that bonding bill. Not only bonding, but local road improvement, county program aid, bridge bonding. It's all really critical for us. I, as all of you, have a policy committee. Transportation has been my policy committee for several years now. Yesterday, I had a chance to visit with Representative Aaron Cagle from Andover. who is the chair of the infrastructure committee, a new committee at the legislature. And she's carrying a bill that will provide ongoing transportation funding if it gets through. It's a delivery fee on things that we receive, whether it's through the post office or FedEx or Amazon or wherever, even food things. And so if that would happen, we'd have some sustainable ongoing funding for transportation, much of which goes down through to the counties for CASA roads. And also, you talked about CTC, Commissioner Berg, there's $2 million across the state of Minnesota for rural transit. So there are some wins, but we need to continue to express our needs and our concerns to our leaders at St. Paul. So that's all I have. With that, I guess we already adjourned the meeting. We are, haven't we? We haven't adjourned the meeting. I thought we'd do this report out after the meeting was adjourned. No. Okay. Well, now we're adjourned.